Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to both of our witnesses today for being here and for your service. Senator Romney inquired a few minutes ago about our strategic planning for allocating PPP, vaccines, and other resources. I'd just like to make the comment that I hope that our allocation of these resources will be based on America's strategic interests. And in that regard, I was in Guatemala and Mexico last week. We have a surge of people coming across our border right now. In fact, 570,000 people have been encountered just this fiscal year. That surge is bringing in people that we don't know have been vaccinated, whether they have COVID or not. I can tell you from meeting with the leadership in Guatemala and in Mexico, there's a dearth of vaccine. Huge problems. You know the Sputnik problem down there.
Yep.
If we're prioritizing these assets, I'd like to know, our vaccines, what the plan is, again, for Mexico, for Central America, Latin America, and South America. How are we prioritizing the allocation of vaccines to those countries given our strategic interest and the fact that in my home state of Tennessee, we have people being shipped in from across that border right now. Unaccompanied minors are being housed in my state. Hospitals don't know what to expect. The school system doesn't know what to expect. How do we address this?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As I alluded to a few moments ago, we are in the process of finalizing the decisions on the allocation of the AstraZeneca vaccines, and I think you will see a reflection in those of the kind of interests and concerns that you point to. I don't want to get ahead of the process or ourselves, but in the coming days, we will be able to walk through that in some detail with you.
Well, I would encourage speed in every respect here because we have a crisis at the border right now, and we have partners south of the border that want to work with us, that are desperate to work with us.
Yep.
And what I don't want to see happen is creating yet another magnet for illegal immigration because they can't get the vaccines down there. This is just another reason why people are flooding across our border right now. So I would very much appreciate your attention to that and your planning.
Sure.
And again, as soon as we have a plan, I would also concur with Senator Romney. That plan needs to be made public, not only to the Congress, but to the American people and to our allies around the world.
We will be doing that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've got another question that I would like to turn to here. And this has to do with the Quad framework. My previous position, I spent a lot of time in that region as U.S. Ambassador to Japan. And I applaud the Biden administration for continuing to emphasize the importance of our cooperation in the Quad. Mm-hmm. The Quad partnership has come together around the COVID-19 situation and have made significant pledges with respect to providing vaccines, over 1 billion doses, in fact, being pledged to that region. I want to come back to the conversation about what's happening in India that Senator Murphy brought up. What is the plan now that India is not in a position to produce and deliver vaccines beyond its own border? How are we going to backfill that commitment? How are we going to address that commitment now, given what's happened in India?
Yeah, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to thank. And Senator, that is the key question right now for global vaccination. A lot of the initial, because of India's role in supplying most of the vaccines, many of the vaccines that are produced globally, and their ability to do so at low cost, much of the global vaccination effort initially was to hinge on that. Mm-hmm. That has changed now, given the situation in India. COVAX is working with U.S. support to diversify their portfolio. So they recently signed deals with Novavax and with Moderna for their vaccines. Moderna, of course, is the one that we have access to here. Novavax is one that is forthcoming, and they're placing a bit of a bet, but I think a safe bet that will come through authorization and be usable. That helps to diversify so that their portfolio is less reliant on India. We are also working to enhance manufacturing and enhance the supply chain that feeds into manufacturing. One of the challenges that India has, and we're seeing it in other places like Brazil and in some of the European producers, they just can't access sufficient supply to produce the vaccine. So their production ceilings they're falling short of. So we're working with colleagues at the White House and at HHS who track those global supply availabilities to figure out how we can better optimize which vaccines are being produced where and the allocation of some of those supplies so that we can make sure that the greatest volumes of appropriate vaccines are being produced. And that, I think, is the long-term play. We've got to get that supply chain piece right so that global production can rise to the level we're going to need.
I appreciate that, and I want to bring us back to my opening comment. We need to take into account America's strategic interest as we do this. We have a massive strategic interest in that region, so I appreciate your attention and focus on that. I'm running out of time, but I would like to also ask, if I could, about COVAX. You mentioned COVAX. I'd like to get an update at a separate time about how that program is functioning. When I met with leadership both in Guatemala and Mexico, there's a very deep shortfall in terms of what expectations are versus what's being delivered. And if we could make arrangements to get an update on that, I would
Very happy
appreciate
to
that.
do that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.